Hi everyone, my name is Sophia and this is my final presentation on my self-care journey. So today I wanted to talk about me, my feelings towards self-care and my habits, how self-care was not a linear journey for me, what did work for me, my tips for self-care, and my future plans. A little bit about me, I'm a current senior health science major and I plan to pursue a career in healthcare. I'm extremely academic, I love learning and take my grades and work very seriously. I'm from Long Island, New York. I'm very involved in leadership on campus through clubs, organizations, and I've always enjoyed being busy and being able to say I accomplished something. And I'm a first-generation college student, which I think has always been a pressure point for me in order to prove to my parents and make them proud and be successful. And it definitely was a tension point with my self-care journey. My feelings towards self-care and its impact. My initial attitudes, I felt as though I was superhuman. If I ate a little something, drank, and maybe slept a little bit, I was okay and I was going to be fine to push through the next day, and that was not the case. I felt self-care was unnecessary, unproductive, and a luxury reserved for those times where I had worked days on end and was burnt out and stressed, and we also know that that is not the case. I felt it was impossible to fit self-care into my busy schedule. I saw it more as a task rather than a tool or something to help me and prevent me from being stressed and burnt out. And that tied into the anxiety and rumination I had over assignments. I felt like I was giving myself leisure time, and once I did that, I would fall behind on my assignments and progress. In my initial habits with feeling superhuman, I'd stay up late until into the AM hours, like 2 a.m., working, and then I would get up and I would wind up doom scrolling for another hour and a half because I wanted to relax and decompress. I neglected spending time with friends and family in order to prioritize my work and efficiency, which left me feeling even more burnt out and isolated, and I was relatively sedentary. I was not really getting out or moving as I was sitting at a desk trying to get assignments done each day. My current attitudes, I now understand that I am perfectly human. Self-care is a necessity, and it's what allows us to remain mentally healthy and prevent that burnout, rather than a luxury that we get or we wind up deserving once we have burnt ourselves out. Rewriting habits might feel tricky and impossible in the beginning, but in utilizing tools the proper way, it's very much possible. I was reading the text, but I hadn't been fully digesting the material and implementing it in a way until I finally understood that pausing and checking in is what is essential in understanding what we need. Self-care and resetting is essential for peak performance, and overworking yourself is not peak performance. My current habits, I've effectively stopped working the latest at 11, and I'm in bed by 11:30. That might still seem late, but it's a big progress point for me from where I started to now. I try to talk to a friend and family member each day and do something with them at least 3 times a week. And before bed, I avoid using my phone, and I've reduced my screen time greatly. And I make it a point to walk and get outside each day. It's a little cold now, but I try and at least drink my coffee on my porch or, do an indoor workout. Self-care is not linear, and it most definitely was not for me. In writing my journals, I wanted so badly to show that I was making consistent progress. However, after one good week, I'd falter and slip back into habits, and that was mainly attributed to forcing myself to stick to a routine. I had to get 2 hours of walking in a day, and that was not the case. Your needs change moment to moment. I become hard on myself when I began to feel more stressed or that I could not complete my goals for self-care, and it made me feel like I was incapable or that it just was not realistic for me to implement self-care. And that was all mainly because I continued to overwork myself each day. I had no energy to give to my other relationships because I was putting all of my energy into my work relationship. And it wasn't until I truly understood that overperforming does not equate to peak performance that I began to see change. And I have my favorite Bronnie quote here on the side that talks about how important power pausing is in the example she gave about boxers, which really clarified things for me. What worked for me? This quote, it says right at the end that we don't come with a one-size-fits-all manual. It was really important for me to understand that what works for other people might not work for me and vice versa. I began to focus on the way that I regarded myself. I noticed that I was a critic rather than a coach, and I was not speaking or regarding myself in a nice way, and it helped me to view myself as a smaller version of myself, or what I would say to a friend, and that helped me with my judgment and how I should speak and coach myself. I found ways to enjoy the journey, like cooking. I love cooking now. It's a major hobby for me. I organized a schedule with self-care included into it, and it wasn't seeing it as a task, but rather it allowed me to designate specific time for myself so that I didn't feel that I was too stressed or I would let my work encroach on that time for self-care. and I reevaluated the energy I put into each of my relationships, like work, social relationships, and my personal relationship with myself. Tips for self-care. Find things that you enjoy. Self-care is not one size fits all. Understand that setbacks are part of progress. It's how we understand what works and doesn't work for us. We are all human. Make a self-care plan. Revamp your schedule and make the inclusion of self-care easier. Like I said, it was really easy and helpful for me to set those specific times for self-care into my schedule. Think of how you treat others and what you would say to them, like I said with thinking about a friend or yourself. And understand the different types of self-care when evaluating what you may need. I have a great resource at the end that talks about all the different modes of self-care, and it's nice to have this resource when thinking about what you might need in that moment. My future plans. In planning to go into medicine, I plan to prioritize self-care in order to avoid burnout and be more connected with my coworkers and patients. You cannot care for others unless you're caring for yourself, and in a career path where you're physically caring for others, it's really important that you make sure that you're prioritizing and caring for yourself to avoid burnout. As I plan to further my education, I'm hoping to continue this practice of scheduling my self-care with my responsibilities in order to separate that time and make sure that I'm able to care for myself. I plan to start yoga or Pilates. I think it's really intentional to schedule a class, and I enjoy that. I notice that I really enjoy movement. And I think this is something I would enjoy. And finally, I would like to switch more from social media to reading. I'm a major bookworm, and I've always enjoyed reading, and I think that would be a really great switch for me, as well as continuing my established habits that I know work for me in the future. Here are my resources, and thank you so much for watching.